I think it's time I tackle the gun topic in My Hero Academia. If you aren't aware of what I'm talking about, there is a pretty reasonable discussion within the fandom about why don't people just use guns in My Hero Academia and just call it a day. There wouldn't be a need for a lot of heroes because the villains would easily be handled by officers and just people in general who have guns. Then there wouldn't be that much crime out there in the My Hero world, and more specifically Japan to begin with. This discussion mostly spans from the time Snipe pulled up to the USJ facility and aired it out, as well as just memes that you see about the topic on social media. Now, though this is a good argument on why guns aren't used more often in the series, and there is more to it than just that, I'm mostly just paraphrasing it, but this view is heavily flawed in many different ways, to the point where it's kind of ridiculous to even think about it to a certain extent. So to start off on my reasons why guns aren't used more often in My Hero Academia is gun laws. And before someone starts typing saying that the gun laws in Japan shouldn't matter because of people having quirks, just hear me out. So in Japan there are some really strict gun laws where, other than the police, military, and certain people with licenses, pretty much no one in Japan is allowed to purchase a handgun or rifle. Now in My Hero Academia, 80% of the Earth's population has a quirk, while the other 20% are quirkless. And like the old saying goes, no one is born equal, meaning that 80% of the population all have wildly different or very similar quirks that all range from being amazing to better luck in the next life. But with those quirks, people are still allowed to defend themselves depending on the situation. It's been confirmed in the series that even though an ordinary citizen might not have a license that allows them to use their quirk in public, they are allowed to use their quirks in self-defense. In this superpowered heavy society, 8 times out of 10 you are more than likely going to need to defend yourself from getting robbed or beat up by a person who has a quirk than a person who doesn't. Now, I know that not everyone who has a quirk might have a quirk that will necessarily protect them from any sort of danger, and of course, if you happen to be a part of that 20% of the population that happens to be quirkless, a gun would be an amazing way to help keep you safe in case a problem like this does end up happening. But quirks can be quite unpredictable. As an ordinary person, you never know what kind of quirk you could be facing up against if this situation ever arises, which could leave you in a very terrible and possibly grim situation. For example, let's say this guy happens to corner you in an alley and is demanding that you give him everything you have. You then analyze the build of this guy and realize, hey, there isn't anything about his physical appearance that tells me what this guy's quirk could possibly be, and this guy doesn't seem to be all that built either, so maybe I could easily take him on if I whip out my gun on him. Then as soon as you pull out the gun to defend yourself from being robbed, all of a sudden your gun is no longer in your possession and is somehow in the other guy's hand, and now you are in an even worse situation than before. In this example, I used Toya Setsuno, one of the 8 bullets of the Shiai Hasaikai. His quirk Larceny allows him to relocate an object that he sees in someone else's possession to his own hands. As you can see, Toya isn't all that threatening from looks alone, but he becomes a lot more threatening when his quirk allows him to steal your weapon. Hell, there are tons of quirks out there that make guns basically pointless when going up against someone who has a quirk. Let's say we put ourselves into the world of My Hero and not take into account how Japan's gun laws work in the real world. I believe Japan's gun laws in the My Hero Academia world serves more to protect these ordinary citizens as much as possible. I know it sounds crazy, but remember, we don't see regular citizens pulling out weapons on quirk users, so it's safe to say that the gun laws remain the same in My Hero's Japan. Also, keep in mind that people are human at the end of the day, and when you mix quirks into the equation, things will get a little dicey, since we know that in My Hero Academia there are people who have heteromorphic type quirks that changes their physical appearances. Sure, someone's heteromorphic quirk could make them look like a cute rabbit, but another person's quirk could make them look like a giant scary looking insect. As we know, discrimination on how someone's quirk makes them look exists in My Hero Academia. Just look at Spinner, or the fox lady who was going to get attacked for looking like a villain because her quirk made her look like a giant beast. So an innocent person whose quirk makes them look threatening could be gunned down for that very reason due to a misunderstanding and just straight ignorance. Because of all of this, I feel crime rates would definitely jump up instead of go down due to the presence of guns. Now, for my final reason on why guns just wouldn't work against quirks is that guns have already been shown to basically be useless in battle. And don't worry, I will get to Snipe and Lady Nagant in a bit, just let me go over this first. So in the series as a whole, including the spin-offs and movies, guns have been used a fair amount of times, mostly by quirkless individuals or just individuals whose quirks aren't all that battle oriented, and for the most part have proven two things when it comes to guns in My Hero Academia. The first being that in order for a gun to be effective, the quirk user you are targeting has to basically not know that you are there in order for you to catch them by surprise with a bullet. The second being, and I emphasize, that regular guns are pretty much useless when it comes to fighting against quirk users. And my favorite examples of guns being useless in fights would have to be in the World Heroes Mission movie, where the quirkless members of Humorize used full auto weapons against our heroes and got absolutely washed. The second being in Vigilantes, where the cops all confront number 6 with their weapons aimed at him and getting absolutely washed by number 6 after he uses his quirk to move at around the speed of light to make the cops all shoot each other instead of him. So while editing, I realized I forgot to talk about how plenty of characters, both heroes and villains, have been shown to have this ability called heightened focus. In chapter 38 of Vigilantes, we learned that there are some heroes, and of course villains, out there who can deal with gunfire barehanded, where due to them being able to use this ability, they are able to see, hear, and think at hyper speed, and to them it's like the rest of the world is frozen in place. This is how plenty of characters are able to react to incoming gunfire and avoid getting hit by them. This also doesn't apply to just the top heroes and villains either, as we have seen a 5% Deku being able to avoid getting hit by bullets while being shot at by two villains with fully automatic rifles in a tight and narrow staircase with barely any space to move around. As we know, Deku at 5% full cowling was still much weaker and slower compared to a ton of heroes and villains around the events of the Two Heroes movie, which just goes to show that even low-ranking heroes and villains could potentially dodge incoming gunfire if they possess this ability. And this isn't even me going into how Endeavor was able to hear an incident before the sound wave of the incident even made it to where Deku and the crew were currently at during the Endeavor agency arc. Plus, even if a villain doesn't possess the heightened focus ability, there are still quirks out there that make it so they are essentially bulletproof. For example, Kirishima and his hardening quirk, thus making a gun ineffective towards him. So essentially there are many ways for a person in My Hero to be able to avoid getting hit by bullets, making guns really useless. But wait, you might be saying that guns actually have been shown to be quite effective against villains and quirk users in general. For example, the time Snipe pulled up to the USJ facility and aired it out on Shigaraki and some of the other villains. And of course, we can't forget about Lady Nagant and her battle with Deku. To be honest, these two heroes, or I guess hero and anti-hero, doesn't really help in the case of why guns should be used more often to take down villains, and here's why. In the case of Snipe, his quirk homing lets him target anything within 600 meters that he sets his eyes on, making it so that any projectile that he releases hits that target. The downside to his quirk, however, is that he can't choose what part of the target he hits, plus the hits don't really do that much damage to his target either. For Snipe, I'm not gonna lie, he put in some work with that gun during the USJ arc, but it's quite obvious that his quirk enhances the gun's capabilities, where from 600 meters away, he can basically just guide the bullets to hit his target. This just wouldn't have the same results if this gun were shot by another person, all for the fact that they most likely wouldn't have a quirk that enhances the gun to where it allows them to hit a target from any distance. In the case of Lady Nagant, her quirk rifle allows her to turn her right arm into a sniper rifle. She even has the ability to use her hair as bullets. When she twists her two-tone hairs together like epoxy putty, they harden up as strong as any ammo currently out there. She can form everything from curving rounds to hollow point rounds. The difference between her and Snipe is that she is basically the gun, while Snipe enhances the gun. And though her quirk doesn't allow her bullets to lock onto a target like Snipe's does, her raw skill alone made her one of the best long-range fighters out there, with her being able to hit a target from 3 kilometers away. In her battle with Deku, she was even able to hit shots on Deku under some awful weather conditions, while he was moving at high speeds and able to detect danger with his quirk. She even hits a trick shot on him by pointing her rifle behind her back while she was moving in mid-air. She is literally a phase member. I don't think I really need to say this, but a normal person just wouldn't have the skill or training that Nagant has to even do nearly half the stuff she could do with a gun, let alone have a quirk that turns a part of their body into one. So in the cases of Nagant and Snipe, they show that guns have been the most effective against quirk users when they are either enhanced by the user's quirk or is the user's quirk. With that said, I don't think guns would make all that great of a difference when it comes to stopping villains and lowering crime rates. If anything, I think it would make things a little worse in the My Hero world. This also doesn't mean that guns in My Hero Academia are completely useless either, because as we've seen, guns can do damage to heroes and villains. It just depends on the situation, really. Still, these are my reasons why I believe guns in My Hero Academia wouldn't be effective against villains or just quirk users in general, and why they aren't used as often in the series against them. Let me know in the comment section below your thoughts on the topic of guns in My Hero Academia, and whether or not you think they would be effective in stopping more villains. Let me know everything in the comment section below. Like always, thank you all for watching today's video. If you enjoyed the video, then be sure to smash that like button below, as well as share this video with your friends. It greatly helps the channel, and if you are new to the channel and you like My Hero Academia content, then be sure to subscribe to the channel, as well as hit that notification bell to join the Kidaroki Hero Academia to become my hero. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.